Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Gayle Carson. Welcome to Living Regret Free, a program that shows you how to live a better and more joyful life. As an added bonus, I invite you to listen to an introduction to my Mindset Matters program, which ties into this so well. Go to www.sobmindset.com. It's free, and I know you will enjoy it. If you'd like to contact me personally, drop me a line at gaylecarson13@gmail.com or go to my website, www.spunkyoldbroad.com, and sign up for my weekly newsletter. My guest today is Debi Ronca. She is president of Sequoia Coaching, a certified life coach, speaker, and disc profile trainer with the John Maxwell team. She's also the author of The Family Letter: How to Intentionally Develop a Culture of Honor, Encouragement, and Value with Your Loved Ones, an international bestseller in 9 relationship and parenting categories in 6 countries. Pretty good, Debbie. Well, wow. I've not heard of this before, The Family Letter. So, well, first of all, welcome to the show. That's number one. And number two, why did you start The Family Letter and exactly what is it?
Well, first, thank you for having me, Dr. Carson. It's a real honor to be on your show. And the family letter really started when my husband and I were raising our children. We wanted them to have an idea of how to use their words, how to speak life, speak encouragement. We wanted our home to be filled with affirmation. And so, we verbally said that to one another. But then we realized our children, because they were young, had struggles expressing themselves one to another. So we thought, what can we do to change this? Because we really wanted to teach them the power of encouragement, and how to use their words to bring life. And so we sat down, my husband and I, and we thought about it, and that's how we came up with the tool of a letter. Because a letter becomes the safe place. The letter is the place where you can pen your thoughts and feelings, and it just becomes that safe place. I think people have trouble expressing face to face sometimes, but the letter just opened the doors of such beautiful communication. So how we instituted in our family is we decided when we would do this would be on our birthdays, because that's the day that everybody wants to be celebrated, right, on your birthday. So what we have done, and we've been doing this now for 35 years, is and in a way to help our children. In the beginning, we had guidelines, because I think one of the hardest things is for people, oh my gosh, where do I start? What do I say? And so we had little guidelines for the family on what to be intentional to put in the letters. So basically, you wanted to share what you loved about that person, not so much say that you love them, but what you loved about them, because that really goes deeper. And to celebrate their gifts and their talents, what great characteristics you see about them, and different things like that. And I can go into more with that later. But basically, what happens is, say it's my birthday, Dr. Carson. I sit down, my husband and each of my 3 children have written me a letter telling me all the reasons why they love, value, and celebrate me. And we take the letters and we sit down, and I, one by one, read each letter out loud. So I'm not only touched by what I'm reading, but everyone else who's sitting there and listening is also touched by what they hear. And it just really turns into this beautiful connection and bonding time. You wind up laughing, sharing a lot of tears. I can say the children are impacted because they hear the father saying beautiful things about their mother and vice versa. So we started this tool, and it's been the greatest tool we've ever used in our family, and we've called it the family letter.
Wow, that's an amazing thing, Debbie. How old were your kids when you started this?
5 and 7.
So how did they express themselves at 5 and 7?
And I love that question, because I always try to tell moms, don't Don't expect long letters, very wordy letters when your children are young, because what you're doing, it's a tool to teach them to express themselves, their feelings. Don't worry about punctuation, if anything's spelled correctly. It's all about getting them to get the words from their heart onto paper. So you can imagine they're really that little, but they're basically saying things like, I love you, mommy, because of the way that you take care of us, or it comes from a child's heart, but they're learning to like share those things. Or if it's sibling to sibling, it's really cute when it's sibling to sibling. Like they say, well, you're a great soccer player, Jamie. You run fast, because we're trying to teach them recognize their talents, recognize the good things. And that's kind of how that goes.
Wow, that's amazing. And of course, when you look back after all these years and you keep the letters and you look at them and you say, oh my gosh, they're so cute, because I'm sure there are so many, as you said, misspelled words and things that are done phonetically rather than correctly. But it's got to be something that you treasure, because it's almost like when they used to do the baby shoes, in bronze. It's just something you remember.
It's
But
so true, so
yeah,
true.
yeah, it's but you also say, that letters can be a catalyst for accomplishing forgiveness. And that's one of the traits that I've certainly always known about it, but I really didn't practice really well. And there were a lot of people, because I've been in business for a very long time, and people have done things, to me, to the
Sure.
business, and I've really not had an ounce of forgiveness, I must say. But I learned about 3 or 4 years ago to forgive, and I can tell you it has really lightened any feelings that I have in my mind or any weights that I was carrying, because there's a lot of things I could be really upset about, but I have to give forgiveness. So, how are the letters a catalyst for forgiveness?
I love that question. And forgiveness, you're so right, because we just carry the weight of it. We don't realize how harmful it is to us, right? When we don't forgive. And gosh, we have all had those struggles and letting go. So I just applaud you on that. That is so wonderful. And I'll tell you a great story, because I wrote a chapter on the letter of forgiveness. When my children were younger, at one time we were also doing letters at Christmas time. In the beginning we were trying to figure out, what we were, the format of everything. And this particular Christmas, my son Jonathan, and at Alex, the background, Jonathan and Jamie were having, sibling struggles. How they're competitive and sometimes not so kind to each other. So in this particular letter, our son wrote to his sister, I'm sorry I'm not the brother that I should be for you. I know I pick on you and I shouldn't do that. And I'm really going to try to be a better brother. Unbeknownst to him, Jamie wrote in her letter, I really wish you would treat me nicer as, my brother. It hurts my heart. And of course, they're young. And
How
when
old
they,
were they when they wrote this?
7 and 9.
Oh my gosh.
And so when they each read their letters out loud, because we read them out loud, they kind of looked at each other and then they just went over and they hugged each other. And the letter gave voice to their pain and their struggle. And it helped that situation.
I think
And
that's beautiful. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful story, Debbie. I just, first of all, well, kids are probably more truthful and more real than we are as adults. But for them to each put those things in their letters, and to be that truthful and open, is just amazing. I mean, I think it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
thank you. It really was very healing for them. And so I thought, gosh, if children can do this, we as adults need to learn, right? Because I think we all have relationships that are either estranged or could use some reconciliation, and we haven't talked in years, but nobody knows where to start. How do I re-engage with that person and feel safe? Um, and you never really know what the other person is thinking. because you haven't communicated in years. And so I encourage my readers to write a letter of, basically just saying, what you miss about that person, what the good things that you really appreciated about them. And I think if you send a letter that's affirming and adding value to that person, especially during the season that we're in, I think people's hearts are really being tenderized and they're ready to let go of some things because, above all, they're going to want their relationships in the times that we're walking in now. And I think if that other person receives that letter, it may be the very thing that opens the door, cracks the door open for communication again.
Well, you also mentioned something called legacy letters, and I'm wondering how those are different from the letters that you've talked about at Christmas or birthdays. Uh, what are legacy letters? I mean, how do they impact the family differently, perhaps, than the Christmas or the birthday letters?
The legacy letters for me are for the grandparents. Grandparents have such a special calling in their life. They have a whole different perspective, and I would say like a bird's eye view of their grandchildren. We are more of the observers. The parents are very busy taking care of their children, but a grandparent can stand back and have an objective view and actually see the strengths and the values and the characteristics, the giftings in their grandchildren, maybe in a different way. And so for me, the legacy letters, and I encourage grandparents, there is nothing more powerful than a grandchild receiving a letter from their grandparent telling and imparting to them their legacy. This is what I see you doing in life. These are the strengths that I see in you. This is how I see you as a person, your heart, your compassion, the different giftings. And grandchildren just lean on the words of the grandparents. And so it's a very powerful tool, especially in significant times in their grandchildren's life beyond their birthdays. It could be graduation. It could be when they get married. I actually, in my book, I have someone whose grandmother was passing away and she was still single. And she wanted her grandmother to give her a blessing for her marriage because she watched that happen with her sister. And she said, I'm not going to have that because you won't be here. And so her grandmother wrote her a letter, and they're waiting till she gets engaged. And at the rehearsal dinner, they're going to open that letter from that grandmother. And it's probably 10 years old of everything that this grandmother is saying to her granddaughter for her wedding day.
Wow. I have to tell you something. I have this Facebook group. It's called the Virtual SOB Club because it's my spunky old broad club that I have, but it's free to anybody, but it's primarily for women 50 plus. And I ask them two questions when they join. One is, what is the greatest pain in your life? And the other is, what is the greatest joy in your life? And although they vary in answers, the most, I would say the predominant pain, of course, is the pain that they have in their bodies, that their bodies don't do the same things they used to do. And the greatest joy is are their grandchildren. That's the interesting thing. Some of them say a lot of different things, but the majority of them say their greatest joy is their grandchildren. And I think that their grandchildren need to know that. I mean, maybe there's some grandparents out there that aren't like that. But it's really interesting to see that because I was surprised at how many people did say that. But besides family, who else do you think benefits from receiving a letter? I hear a lot of crinkling. I don't know what that is, but it'll come across in the broadcast, and Joe's going to have to cut it out, Debbie. So if you're moving papers, please just don't do that because that'll come across, okay?
Oh, okay.
Okay. So Joe will cut that out. Besides the family, who else would benefit from receiving a letter, do you think?
My first thought to that is I believe everyone deserves to receive a letter in life. Even the people with the hardest of hearts really long to know, are they valued, loved, and celebrated, right? Start there. And then think of people in your life like coaches, teachers, mentors. If you did have a good experience, like with a business partner, a friend, someone who's walked you through difficult times, someone who's really imparted great things to your life, has been an encourager, it would be so valuable for them to hear the difference that they have made. Because all of us at the end of the day want to know, has my life had value? Have I made an impact? Have I made a difference? And that letter will be so valuable to that person.
That's so true. I think about that. I'm certainly not a youngster. And I think about that. How much impact have I had? And of course, I've trained so many people because I had a chain of career schools and a talent agency and a convention service company. And I worked with a lot of people. I had a lot of people working for me and with me. And I'll occasionally get are you the same Gayle Carson? Or you will not believe what impact you had on my life. And it just warms my heart. I can't tell you how much it means to me. And the other beautiful thing about what you are doing is people don't write letters anymore. They just don't. Everything is online. Everything is, texts. I don't know what I was listening to the other day, and it was some managerial thing, and they were saying, how do you deal with millennials? How do you instruct them? And they want to hear from you by text, and you don't want to text them. And so you send them something that says, I don't want to text. I need you to do these particular things. And then they'll text back saying, send me what you want me to do by text. And the whole point of the whole conversation was, I don't want to text. So I think that letter writing is, it's becoming a lost art. I think that's one of the reasons the Postal Service is having so much problem. Is because everybody's doing everything online, and they are not sending anything through the mail. People are paying bills online. They are buying online. There's so many things that the Postal Service is always in debt. So, but you also say there are times that you should use Zoom or you should use FaceTime. So where does that play into it?
Well, that's the one time technology can be our friend, because I totally agree with you. I think everything's become so impersonal. We all have emojis and we text, but we've become very impersonal in our communication. So that's why the letters are so valuable. But for me, the power in doing the letters is when you read them out loud together. There's such amazing connection and bonding that takes place. So I've had a reader recently purchase a couple books, and she said, my daughter doesn't live by me. So she said, I'm going to do Zoom letters. So in other words, they're going to write letters and then get on Zoom as a family and read the letters out loud, because that's where you don't want to just be reading the letter alone. It means so much more when you actually read it out loud. It impacts everyone that's in the room. And now that my children are older, two of them live further away. And so we still do the letters. So sometimes we have to FaceTime somebody in so they could be a part of the letter reading with those of us that are still in the same area. So for instance, even on Father's Day, we do letters on Mother's Day and Father's Day as well. So for Father's Day, we FaceTimed our son who lives in DC, and he was there with us as we read the letters, and he emailed his letter to my husband. So my husband had a letter to read. So that's the way you can use technology to be able to still do this letter reading. Like there's no boundaries. This could go on and on.
That's beautiful. That's a wonderful way. I have to tell you, since I am now in my 15th week of hibernation, I have to say, and I'm a person who was flying 2, 3, 4 times a month. I mean, I had 4 million miles on American, so you imagine how much.
Oh my!
And I'm really happy staying home. Luckily, I have my 2 kitties, and they keep me company and they keep me occupied. But I can tell you that I'm really perfectly happy doing Zoom meetings and watching people's faces and seeing how they react. And being involved that way. In fact, I just wrote an email to somebody who had hired me to speak, but they canceled the conference, and now they're doing it in September. But I told her I'm not getting on an airplane until there's a vaccine. But I wrote her this morning and I said, I can't believe that you're really doing this in September, because, you know, I still think it's going to be canceled myself. You know, every one of my meetings has been virtual, and they're virtual through the end of November so far. But I said I would be happy to film a Zoom event for you, and you can play it to your attendees before the conference if you would still like me to be a presence there. However, I understand if you decide this is not something you want to do, but it's so, I like it. I like it, except for the fact that I have so many meetings. I'm drained by the end of the day, and they all come at the same time. I'll have 3 at 10 and 4 at 12 and 5 at 3, and I have to make a choice, as to what I go to and what I don't.
Oh my.
We only have about 5 minutes left, Deb. So I want to ask you, you talk about the last letter and how it can bring comfort to those left behind. Tell us about that.
This, years ago, my father was passing away from cancer, and we happened to be home at that time, back up on the East Coast. My 3 children asked, Mom, can we write Grandpapa a letter? And I was so touched by that. And at this point, my father was towards the end. They each wrote their own letter telling their grandfather how he impacted their lives, the memories that they had with him. It was so touching. And we took the letters and we stood around my father's hospital bed, and we read each letter out loud so my father could hear them. And I could tell by the look on my father's face that he was receiving those words. He was being so touched by it. And I know he left this world knowing how he impacted his grandchildren. And so coming out of that experience, I started to, think about, what do I want to do? So my husband and I have both decided that we're going to write our last letter to be with our wills. So when our time comes, our children will find our final letter to them. And we are such a family of letters, I know they would probably even think that there should be a letter. So we're going to do that. And then in my book, I also encourage people in a very sensitive way that if you have so much time left, that this would be the best thing for you to do, is to write your family a letter telling them all the things that you've loved about them and all the things from your heart. Because once a person is gone, what do we want? We want to hear the words. We want to hear while we're grieving. We want that person with us. And so the words will be that healing balm to our hearts. And so I really encourage people in the last letter.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, let's tell everybody how they can find you. I don't know if you have a gift you want to offer to anybody, but we're certainly open to that. Tell me and tell our listeners where they can find you, how they can reach you, where they can buy your book, all of those things about you.
Thank you. You can reach me at DebiRonca.com. That's DebiRonca. That's my website. You can purchase the book there. I can sign it for you, or you can go to Amazon. And you can also reach me on LinkedIn or at DebiRonca@gmail.com.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I can tell you, I'm sure for many of you who are listening, this is something that's very unusual for you, and something that you never really thought about it, but it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to do. And I can see where this would have a tremendous impact. So I strongly recommend you either go to Debi's site. Again, it is Debi Ronca, Ronca. And by the way, it's DEBI, one I, DEBIRONCA.com. Also, she has her books there. She has her services there. So anything that you would like from Debi is there. And I want to remind all of you that if any of you are interested in any of my courses, you can go to sobuniversity.com. My website is spunkyoldbroad.com. My free Facebook group is, of course, facebook.com/group/virtual SOB club. So hopefully, Debbie will see you there. I will see you there. Debbie, thank you so much for being with us today. It has been a delight and really an eye-opener for me and for, I'm sure, all of our listeners. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. And I did forget to offer, and the first 10 people who come to my website, I'll offer a 1-hour free coaching.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Deb.
Thank you, Dr. Carson.
Hi, this is Dr. Gayle, and I wanted you to know I have a whole bunch of other things to offer you. If you go to spunkyoldbroad.com, you will see an array of SOB stuff for sale and all our latest products and additions. If you're interested in getting on TV, I have a brand new course, Get on TV. And if you want to start your own business, you'll want my SOB Guide to Business Success. I know you'll love them all. I guarantee it.
Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. I choose my guests carefully, so if you have someone you'd like me to interview, please drop me a line at gaylecarson13@gmail.com. In the meantime, check out my intro program, Mindset Matters, at www.sobmindset.com. See you next week.